Hey there, everybody. Tonight we watched a little movie that you probably have not heard of called Starcrash. It's a Roger Corman production, and it's very similar to a movie you might have heard of called Star Wars. Connor, what is the plot of Starcrash?
Starcrash stars a woman whose name already escapes me.
I don't think I ever knew it.
And her permed friend. They are smugglers, and the friend is the best navigator in the galaxy and some kind of space wizard, and she is just a good pilot. And they are arrested by the space police, a la Death Sticks, a Star Wars fan film.
Die, infidel. Pull over. You're under space arrest. I smell death sticks. Pull over, infidel.
It's the exact same scene.
Basically. But they're arrested, and they're basically told by the Emperor of the Universe that they need to find his son, who's the Prince of the Universe. So they go on a quest with their robot, not C-3PO, and this green dude that looks like Vin Diesel, but isn't Vin Diesel.
Yes. And the green dude is very badly painted. They forgot to get paint
Right.
on his neck, and there's like splotches of white coming through.
And they go to the planet of the Amazons for some reason. And they go to the snow planet for some reason. And then they go to the super weapon planet, not the Death Star. And it has a force field of monsters, red monsters. And they fight cavemen on this planet, just the woman. Oh yeah, they already beat up Green Vin Diesel after they found out he was a traitor. But they fight the cavemen. And then the prince and the girl fight the caveman because they find the prince here. And then the prince is played by David Hasselhoff. And then the navigator dude comes out with a fucking lightsaber, starts killing the cavemen. And then they find the wizard's hideout, Count Dracula, the villain. And he ends up killing the wizard guy somehow. Like these two Grievous bodyguard things come up and they fight him.
With like Swami swords?
Yeah, they have like Swami swords because it's too hard to animate 3 lightsabers, so they get in a lightsaber battle. And then the wizard guy tackles the fucking robot, and somehow this kills him. And he sits there, and then he evaporates into energy. And then her and the prince leave, and after the emperor shows up and is like, I can freeze time. And he freezes time for 3 minutes, and then they leave. This is all very confusing to me, too. I'm trying to piece this together, so I apologize if my plot synopsis is kind of bad. And then they end up flying the city, because there's a flying city, and they destroy the
Ship that looks like a hand
the hand ship
for some reason.
and kill the evil wizard. And that's then the robot friend that got killed by the cavemen. I don't know if I mentioned that. The robot friend gets killed by the cavemen, but he comes back to life as an upgraded robot friend. And yeah, that's fucking Starcrashers. So Aidan, what did you think of Starcrashers? Actually, it wasn't by Roger Corman. I don't know why his name was in the credits, because I read the Wikipedia and his name is not on there. But it did like flash Roger Corman right at the start. He's not a producer either. It's by some other dude who wrote the movie. But anyways,
Okay.
It's a shitty B movie in the vein of Roger Corman. I don't know if he bought the rights later. I don't know what happened
I don't know.
there.
It's a Star Wars knockoff in a lot of really obvious ways. I mean, the robot character's always nervous and talking about how he's nervous, and he's like, you know that hyperspeed travel makes me nervous, and they You know, all the characters kind of fit into a spot somewhere. Like, I guess the pilot guy's kind of like Han Solo, but he has the Force. He's the only one that does.
Yeah, him and
And
the
a lightsaber.
Emperor are both kind of like Obi-Wan in ways.
Yeah, and then, yeah, the Emperor's kind of like Obi-Wan, especially because you only see him as like a hologram most of the time. There's a lightsaber for like 2 minutes, because lightsabers are expensive to animate.
And the girl is like a gender swap to Luke Skywalker, and the prince is a gender swap to Leia.
Pretty much, yeah. There's a lot of stop motion in the movie, which is kind of, it's a little wonky. There's the giant Amazon robot that they have with nipples,
pretty clunky.
kind of just like hobbled around really awkwardly. It wasn't no Harryhausen. It kind of just awkwardly clomps around, and then
Right.
it gets shot and just falls over and goes to bed. And obviously, there's a lot of cheapness to the movie. The green dude had his, like, every time he, like, lifted his head, his entire, like, everything on his collarbone was just, like...
was even splotchy.
Just, like, pasty white.
Right.
I guess that whole kind of cheapness gives it a little bit of a charm.
The brain literally looks like a testicle.
Oh, yeah, the spaceship computer is supposed to be a brain, but it looks like a giant testicle because it's got, like, blue veins on it.
Right. It's got balls, the ball sack.
Just a giant talking ball sack.
Right.
And the guns all looked like butt plugs. And it had some of that other B-movie stuff, like the scantily clad women. Our hero, whose name is coincidentally Ray.
No, she's not Ray. I thought they called her Ray, but maybe they meant Ray Gunn, because I don't think that's her name. Let me look on... It's very hard to follow the plot. I feel like she's been called by about 40 different names. Oh, her name is Stella Star.
Porno name.
Yeah. That literally is some fucking porno name.
She spends most of the movie dressed up in, like, BDSM leather outfit bikini thing.
For some reason.
We know the reason.
Right.
Because we gotta get asses in seats, baby. That was what sold. There's a lot of weird plot points. The plot is kind of just like, the whole time they're looking for the prince, and they just go to random places and fight some random stuff, and he's not there, so they leave. Also, for some reason at the very start, the start is the most confusing part because there's just a bunch of explosions, and then she ends up in a slave camp where they dress her in the sexy BDSM outfit, but she just keeps it on the rest of the movie, and even, like, changes back into it sometimes. The robot guy, L, doesn't seem very robotic. He's basically just a guy in a helmet, but also they made him Texan for some reason. Not just his accent. His accent is Texan. He sounds like a transformer. And he'll kind of just like awkwardly walk around like a normal human, but with a Texas accent. But I think they even tried to give him some Texas flair, because at the end of the movie, he jumps out of a window into space and says something along the lines of like, "I hope this works, partners," and just like, he just like, whoop, just like dives right out the window. I don't know. It's very odd.
The robot also does the clunky C-3PO. It's supposed to look like C-3PO, but it's kind of hard in the costume.
Yeah.
He doesn't have like the...
And the Swami sword robots are also stop motion. There's a lot of stop motion miniatures. There's a little bit of charm to the movie, but I feel like with this, like, this one's a little too close to Star Wars, where some of the charm is killed by the fact that it's just kind of a knockoff. But in the same way, it's kind of adorable because it's just like an awkward, cheap knockoff, and like all the miniatures are kind of just like, you know, they kind of tried, but they didn't try that hard, and that makes it kind of funny. I mean, you know, it's something that you could imagine being on Mystery Science Theater 3000 back
Apparently
in the day.
they did it on the 2017 season.
Well, that is not something I've ever watched
I
or
read
planned
that
to.
on Wikipedia.
Actually, I think I watched one episode, but...
Yeah, I watched an episode and it was just like, oh.
I mean, we were making jokes about the whole time, the giant glowing ball sack, and...
Right. I'm kind of amazed it wasn't on Mystery Science till now. Maybe they weren't able to get the rights, but...
It was relatively charming and funny. Not fantastic, obviously, because the B movies of this time just weren't. But you know, what did you think of Starcrash?
I mean, as far as it goes, most of the acting was fine. The villain was a little like 1950s-esque cheese. There was a lot of blatant Star Wars iconography stolen.
Yeah.
Like the opening shot was like the ship passing overhead. A lot of the miniatures were in vein of Star Wars. It was like, let's make our own spaceship. Obviously, we can't do Star Wars. Kind of had like a Battlestar Galactica vibe when you were in space, where
A little bit, yeah.
like the original Battlestar Galactica is just like, let's redo the space battles. Obviously, it wasn't done as well as Battlestar Galactica, but it was kind of like, let's copy a lot of like the iconography and imagery from Star Wars and then just like do it cheaper.
Battlestar in there.
Yeah, a lot of the space imagery was really weird with all the stars being like multicolored, so it always looked like a fucking disco ball in space.
Yeah, and then like the glowing red ball monster things.
Right.
They were just like.
The hyperspeed was a little.
Well, they changed how the hyperspeed worked the second time too.
Right. Well, it also changed colors completely.
Yeah. Because they just kind of like changed how it looked for some reason. I don't know if maybe the first time they were just doing some other form of hyperspeed. I don't know. I'm just making excuses, but it does change appearance in the movie.
And then you had the laser sword, which technically people can do the laser sword, but it's so rare to see people rip it off in like a space opera-esque thing like this, just because it would look blatant as hell. I'm sure.
I mean, that was the point. They wanted to put it on the box.
Right, and that's what they did. They put it on the box.
And then it showed up for 2 minutes because it was expensive to do and went away.
The director claimed that this movie wasn't a ripoff of Star Wars. And, okay, here is my theory. Because apparently it took 18 months. My theory is he either made a sci-fi movie and then when shooting they adjusted it to be more like Star Wars. Or he could have seen like Star Wars posters and shit and because he like it was frequented around like Comic Cons and shit at the time. I don't know how majorly it was hyped up. It's hard to really say, but maybe he saw iconography and kind of stole some of that for his movie. Or maybe it was like one of those things where you get those movies every couple of years where it's like the same movie comes out like twice in a summer. But judging on the quality of this production and judging how it came out in 1978, I don't believe what the director says. I think it was just a ripoff of Star Wars. Like maybe he had like a loose sci-fi script.
If I had to guess, the first one is probably the closest, where they like had a sci-fi movie and then Star Wars came out and they're like, okay, we'll just make a scene where the guy has psychic powers and we'll have a scene where he uses a laser sword.
Yeah, that was that was a bit of a busted power that they kind of just used because they couldn't figure out how to move the plot along.
Yeah.
Like the fucking perm guy has a scene where he's like, I can see the future. And he can just see the future, which solves multiple problems in the movie, but he can't do it because it's against the law? I don't know if that's like against the law of wizards, against the law of the universe.
Against the law of the Emperor?
It seems like the Emperor would be cool with it because he does it multiple times, and the mission is to save his son. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
I have a feeling that they kind of just jammed some stuff
It wasn't
in there,
like,
but also
if
like,
I tell you the future, it'll change, like the Doctor Strange in the MCU shit.
yeah.
And he also, like, knows the probability. Maybe that explains, like, in one of the first scenes, she's like, what's our probability of getting out of this? And he lifts off the probability, so I couldn't tell if he was a robot or not. Also, I don't think anybody on the staff knew what it was, because when he was dying, the woman's like, you are the best and only human-like friend I've ever had. I'm like, what does human-like mean? Like, is he a realistic robot? Is he just a wizard creature, which means he's technically
He's
not
some kind
human?
of not from Earth thing?
Right.
I don't know.
They also, like, kind of took the like the men were clearly kind of like the low budget stormtroopers. Like they didn't have the full costumes, but they kind of had the similar vibe going on.
Well, I feel like they also lifted C-3PO's personality for the robot, because the robot's lines would have been dubbed over after.
Although I suppose it could have been like a Robbie the Robot thing originally, because I mean you definitely have examples through sci-fi of the clumsy robot. I don't think C-3PO is entirely original.
C-3PO was fairly unique in making him really anxious, and they did the same thing with this robot where he's always talking about how he's afraid of hyperspace, which is almost word for word what C-3PO said.
Right.
And, every time they go to a planet, he's like, I don't feel good about this. I'm nervous.
Right, and I feel like the Emperor's
suspect.
The Emperor's personality and how they had him talk and stuff was kind of like a pull from Alec Guinness, and the wizard guy was, I guess, kind of or perm guy was kind of like Alec Guinness. I don't fucking understand that wizard guy. That shit tripped me out the whole time.
I don't know.
I have no idea what his
just
fucking
one of those
purpose
fucking
is.
things.
Yeah, I mean, it really fucking is just one of those things, because I have no fucking clue. And most of the time, the plot isn't very, clear to understand. Maybe if I watched it later, I'd understand better. After seeing the whole thing, I can go back and understand, but I feel like I'm a pretty inept film watcher, and I had no fucking idea what was going on half the damn time. They didn't make things very clear.
No, it's pretty messy the whole time. I got that they were looking for the prince, but they just go random places that had ships crashed, and they'd be like, "There's no one here," and then they just go on some little adventure and then leave. And the entire opening where there's just a bunch of ships exploding, and she's in a ship that explodes, and then she's in a cornfield, and then she's enslaved, and then she's talking to some old people, and then she's not enslaved.
Well, yeah, and then the Emperor lets her free. The Emperor seemed pretty oppressive. They're doing, slave work, so... I don't know.
A lot of it is hard
I thought
to
she was
what's
captured
going
by
on.
the villain, but she wasn't, I guess. I thought she was captured by the police, and then I thought she was enslaved by the villain. Then I'm like, wait, does the villain run the galaxy, in Star Wars? Or is this, But then, no. I couldn't tell what the fuck was going on the whole time.
I don't really get who the villain is. He's a count. Okay.
He's some sort of evil wizard.
And he has some kind of super weapon that we never see.
He rigged it with nuclear bombs.
Thing?
No, I think the weapon is the red lasers that are
supposed
to look like monsters.
Those were to protect the planet where he had the weapon. I think
then the weapon is rigged with
weapon?
nuclear explosions.
Or something. But then, he doesn't show up for most of the movie, and he doesn't have the prince captured. The prince just happens to be on the right planet. They were looking for his super weapon, the prince just ends up in the right spot, and then the other people also just end up in the right spot, and they're like, oh, what a coincidence. And then the prince is like, I didn't even realize I was in the right spot, and there was a gigantic super robot door right behind him that led to a secret lab, and it's how the fuck did you not figure that out, dumb fuck?
They also really didn't bother to make aliens, other than the green Piccolo, Vin Diesel's Piccolo's love child.
But then the villain doesn't even show up in the movie. All we know is that he has some kind of weapon thing, and everyone just kind of ignores him, and then he walks off screen, and then the next time we see him, he just explodes on his hand ship. There's really nothing to him. He doesn't do anything. He's never a threatening presence. He's barely a presence at all.
Yeah, I mean, even when he's you guys will be trapped, and I'm not going to kill you, even though I have 40 armed dudes here and I could kill you, but you can just stand here and I'll just let my guards explode. My 2 expensive robots. Only 2 two-of-a-kind robots. The Swami swords.
And I'm not going to take your laser sword away from you.
Right. Well, yeah. But then, he had it, hidden behind his back, poorly. But then, once, why would he want his robots to blow up? Why not just kill him? Why nuke the entire planet? Because the Emperor was coming? Is it a trap to get him there?
A trap to get
he said he called the
up?
Emperor, but why would the Emperor just trust him and come out?
Yeah,
why was he not waiting there to fight the Emperor?
And then the Emperor just pulls...
Why did the Emperor
the time stop
show
ability
up?
out of his fucking ass?
Yeah, well, every ability in this goddamn movie is just pulled out of everyone's ass. Like when the fucking wizard dude gets shot by 1,000,000 lasers by fucking Piccolo Vin Diesel. He gets shot like 6,000 times with his laser gun, and then he's just fucking fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just
why did he pretend to? Why didn't he just do that in the first damn place? If he could see the future, why not stop him in the first place and then?
Because he's not allowed to change the future. It just had to play out that way, I guess. Right. I don't know.
Well, like, why did he pretend to be incapacitated forever so that the lady got frozen in the Arctic?
I don't know.
In the California snow.
It also seems... I don't really understand how he died, because he survived getting bashed in the back of the head, and he took disintegrator lasers to the fucking body, and deflected them with his hands, and then the robot hit him with a Swami sword, and it killed him somehow. No, it didn't.
He dived on the robot, and then it blew up, or something. I don't know if he was, like,
no, the other guy dived on the robot. Because the wizard guy was fighting the robot, and he killed the first one, then the second one chopped him with his Swami sword, and the other guy dived on the robot. So I guess just like one slice of the Swami sword on his arm killed him.
Wasn't like
even though he was like some kind of magic space wizard.
And he had no visible injuries, he just kind of laid down and fucking turned into the space thing. He could also just shoot gibberish lasers, which are just squiggles out of his hands, and they're like, look at the map, and then it's just a bunch of squiggles. I'm like, that's not a fucking map.
It's a very hard map to read, because it's just like...
Yeah, they're like, oh, I understand these squiggles. Also, they're like, this is a planet no one's ever been to before. Then it takes them 2 seconds to fly through hyperspace and get there. I'm like, why hasn't anyone been there before?
It's full of cavemen?
Yeah.
So cavemen.
Yeah, why are all the every planet just happen to have humans? Yeah. Like, I understand, like, maybe this is a less developed planet, so it's got cavemen, but I don't know, dude. I don't trust it. I don't believe it. I'm calling bull. I'm calling bull on this entire movie, dude.
They probably could have skipped the snow planet altogether, too, because nothing happens there. They could have just had the green guy, ditch him on the first planet instead, because they go to the snow planet, they find the wreckage of the ship that they park, like, 30 miles away from for some reason, and then they look at it, and they turn around, and then the green guy knocks out the wizard, and he's like, I'm not going to let you get back on the ship, you're just going to die out there in the cold. And then they lay down, they're like, okay. And they just plan to die, and then the wizard wakes back up and saves them, and then he's like, okay, get on. Like, you could have just skipped that whole planet and just put that last part at the end of the Amazon planet, I guess.
Right.
Cut out the giant titty robot.
This entire movie was pretty fucky.
It's a little wonky.
So, Aidan, would you recommend Starcrash?
It does have kind of that cheesy 70s B-movie value. I probably wouldn't watch it alone, but maybe with a couple friends. If it had been on the old MST3K, I'd say watch that episode, but it was on the new MST3K, so I'd say don't watch that. But,
you know it was just that dude from Funny or Die saying, what is this, Star Wars?
Don't forget the guy who murdered his wife and...
Patton Oswalt?
Mm-hmm. And the
Patton
camel.
Oswalt comes
Felicia
in.
Day, the human camel, and Patton, wife murderer Oswald.
You know they're just sitting there playing at the movie. That's it's fucking Star Wars. This is
alleged wife murderer.
Star Wars.
Alleged human camel Felicia Day and alleged wife murderer Patton Oswalt. An alleged funny person, Funny or Die guy.
I think it was either College Humor, Funny or Die, I can't remember.
Whatever. Same terrible website. Dorkly.
Well, Funny or Die is owned by Will Ferrell.
Wow.
Or produced, I don't know, something like that.
I don't know. It could be kind of
creative,
funny with friends who want to roast an old B movie. It does have like comedic value in that sense because it's so odd and at least it keeps moving. It doesn't drag too hard.
Right.
It's not like watching like the 50s giant bug movies where it's like 90 minutes of scientists standing in labs talking and then a close-up of an ant for 30 seconds.
Right, at least shit happens. That's one nice thing about this movie. Most of the shit makes no sense and is baffling and confusing, but I feel like movies where shit happens makes it automatically better than 70% of sci-fi movies from the era.
Yeah, I think the baffling parts of it kind of enhance the being able to make fun of it part a little bit, so You know, there's a set of circumstances I'd recommend it. I probably wouldn't watch it alone, but you know, it's got a little potential there for roasting. So Connor, would you recommend Starcrash?
I mean, my opinion's basically the same as yours on this. Like, it's kind of a fun movie for roasting. Obviously, it's not, like, particularly good. It's kind of baffling. I guess if you're a Star Wars fan, it might just be something fun to watch with a group of friends or something and just be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
But, I mean, as far as, like, you know, or just a fan of shitty B movies, it's one of the fun B movies to watch. I won't put it up there with, like, Samurai Cop. More on the tier of The Room, where it's mostly horrible, but sometimes there's circumstances where there's parts that are kind of funny to make fun of. Actually, it's not as boring as The Room.
Yeah, The Room's mostly boring. It's more like it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Manos Hand of Fate, which is like not really boring, but also really terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, a lot of Roger Corman movies kind of fall into this range.
Well,
like
you're thinking of that's not
I know
Roger
this one's
Corman,
not a
that's
Roger
Ed
Corman.
Wood.
No, I was saying
Ed Wood did.
I know Roger Corman. No, I know he did. But I was saying this kind of falls into a lot of the same things that Roger Corman movies do. I know it's not
Just
technically
cheap.
made by Roger Corman, but stuff like the, you know, Carnosaur and stuff, kind of actiony and silly all the way through instead of boring.
Right. Cheaply made action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was our review of Star Crashers, the Star Wars ripoff.
We're both in quarantine, so recommend us something you want to watch. If you're the first 10 commenters, we will review whatever you ask for.
We'll see if we get any comments.
Yes.
Literally, there's a pretty good chance that if you comment a movie you want us to watch, we will.
Yep, you can pick anything. Anything. You want us to review porn? You want us to review anime? You want us to review music videos?
Barbie Princess and the Pauper?
Skylanders, the whole TV show, every episode?
No.
Reviewed individually, every episode of Psych.
Yeah, we can continue our Psych-a-thon.
Our Psych review was a minor hit, bro. We could bring that back.
Well, I mean, for the time, 270 views wasn't that bad, considering we probably had sub 10 subscribers when we made the video.
Yeah, we were pretty low. We gotta do something special for our 1,000th sub.
Pretty far away still.
We're pretty far, but we're gonna get there. I think what we do is go to Doug Walker's house, kick the door in, talk to him, interview him.
No, I don't think Doug will ever take an interview with us. Our
Well, yeah,
entire
that's why
fucking series, the nostalgia credits, just calling him a fucking drooling
That's why we
manja.
break into his house. We smash the window in, crawl
Guerrilla
in.
reporting.
Guerrilla reporting. He lives in Illinois. He's not that far. Or maybe it was Indiana, something like that. I think it starts with an I.
Well, yeah. There you go. I guess
See you soon, Doug.
that was a threat. Alright, that's the video.
If you don't agree to an interview, I'm gonna send Patton after you. He's got a bottle full of pills waiting for you.
Yeah, you don't. We have to have at least 6,000
Allegedly.
subscribers before we can leverage getting Patton Oswalt on our channel.
Patton Oswalt wouldn't like us though. Not just because we make fun of him murdering his wife, but because we're not hardcore retard liberals, which automatically makes him hate you. Patton Oswalt probably has as many people blocked as like Mars Girl.
Okay, well that was the video. Goodbye.
We can cut some of that out.
Then talk